record. Elliot, I'll put it back on you to kind of follow up with me to share that recording if I forget. How about that?
Okay.
If you don't see it by tomorrow morning, I'll send that to Ashley and Elliot.
Sounds good.
Perfect. So thanks for joining. So as I believe Elliot mentioned, my name's Tim Paul. I'm an AutoDesk employee I just hit my 7-year anniversary. It's exciting for me. It's the longest job I've ever had. So beyond that, I've been in manufacturing for over 20 years. I've been making things since I was a little guy. I think I learned how to MIG weld when I was like 9 years old. So I got my working life started in the bicycle industry, and then I've done several different things there. But then from there, I got into aerospace manufacturing, motorsports. I've done some pretty interesting things that I think I'll save some of that for when I'm talking about, you know, how my portfolio of work has helped my career. So so kind of explain some of those pictures. So if anybody watches the news or anything really, I don't know, about a month ago, you probably saw this GIF that's showing that volcanic eruption. So I personally was involved in making the satellite, payload, the communications payload that made those pictures possible. So if you see that kind of badge in the top center of the picture, that was the GOES-R project that I did. I basically made the payload for that satellite that brought those pictures to us. So I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But I've done lots of fun little things. That little cute little girl up by the CNC machine there, that's a machine that we have in our garage, and she is quite a badass little maker. Sorry for the language, but we're building a cool Jeep together, and we do a lot of fun things in our garage. So let's talk a little bit about kind of my portfolio of work and how it's changed and kind of helped my career. So one of my mentors a long time ago, I'm certain he didn't, invent the phrase, but he often said, "Show me, don't tell me." And that was kind of like his way of saying, get some stuff done. And then show me what you did. Don't just brag about it and talk about it, right? So I think in an industry of people that are going to be making things, designing things, I always thought about portfolios as things that artists did, right? And I hope all of you heading into engineering and manufacturing think about, take some artistic pride in what you do. And I think it's pretty relatable, both ways. So I'll go through my career a little bit and talk about, so portfolios, as people think about them now, they weren't, really a thing when I was getting into my working life. So when I was in high school, I wanted to work at this bike shop. I live up in Sacramento, and there was this really popular bike shop that had like the who's who of a lot of, our region's cycling industry. I really wanted to work there. I raced mountain bikes when I was in high school, and I went and applied. I got an interview. Luckily, I rode my bicycle, because about halfway through the interview, the owner of the shop said, did you ride your bike here? And I said, yeah. And he's like, let's go take a look at it. And I was like, oh crap. Luckily, I, for whatever reason, just wiped my bike down and polished it up real good right before I went down there. And I actually fixed a couple little things. And I was reflecting back on telling this story to you guys. And that was the first time I realized, like, that was kind of like my portfolio of work for the limited experience I had. And he went out there and was like, hey, who did your suspension? And I was like, I did. And, hey, we want to know more about it. And he was like, crap, you know what you're doing. So that was a show me, don't tell me kind of moment, right? So from there, I raced mountain bikes all over the country, a little bit all over the world. And I was surrounded by and worked with some of the most successful, mountain bike racers in the world. And I learned a lot from them. And a lot of it was, some of these people were better at promoting themselves than they were actually racing. And I learned about the business side of being an athlete. And a lot of it was, your race resume, highlighting your press coverage. A lot of racers would just list all their accomplishments. And not really highlight how they were picked up in the press and what they did for their community and all those kind of things. And really what value they brought back to the businesses that they were trying to get sponsorship from. So that was a other little nugget that I kind of, filed away in my tiny little brain. And this all does kind of build up to a big portfolio moment for me, but I thought it would be worth kind of sharing the history. So I fell in love with modern manufacturing through the bicycle industry. I was part of a development team. I remember seeing this CNC machine cutting this intense bicycle. It was a bicycle brand that was pretty innovative back in the 90s. And I remember thinking, holy crap, this is my future. I'm doing this for the rest of my life. And so then I went off to school and, got into manufacturing. And I remember my first job as a machinist. I was taught somewhere to always bring a folder with brand new, nicely printed resumes whenever I go to a job interview. And last minute, I took some pictures of stuff I've made and I threw it in this folder. And about wrapping up the interview with this machine shop, the owner was like, "Well, tell me about some stuff you've made." And I was like, "Oh crap, I got some cool pictures of a bicycle I made while I was in high school." And honestly, nothing was all that. And I don't know, making my bicycle from scratch while I was in high school was pretty damn impressive to me. But there was some things that I showed him that I was a part of. And the important thing is I was able to articulate like, man, this really kicked my butt. And I had to do this to figure out how to move past it. And this, I was in school and I this very unimpressive project, kind of kicked my butt because my instructor didn't really have, way to teach me this. And I learned this. And he was like, "Holy crap, I love it. When can you start?" So that was kind of the next little trigger for me of what, what's showing off, show me, don't tell me, right? So moving from there, I started my own business. This is a long kind of windy story to get there, but I started my own business and I had my own business for about 7 years. And what I did was I did like big contract, turnkey projects for big machine shops. And I also got into product design, really in the motorsports industry. Worked with some, real famous, motocross racers. And every time I met with a customer, I was really having to show off my portfolio of work, maybe not officially in a portfolio, right? But every time it was showing them something I did, how it helped a customer, how it saved them money, how it made their products better. And I always tried to tie it back to how it was going to help them. So that was 7 years of my life, basically like every week I was meeting with customers and showing off my portfolio of work, right? And even the customers I didn't really, sell, I was still making impressions that often led to something else. So the big culmination moment for me, and how it relates to a portfolio is I got tired of running my business. I was working literally 100 hours a week. I was making more money than I've ever made in my life, even today. And I just had a baby. I wanted to kind of calm down and focus on, I didn't have a baby, but my wife did. And I wanted to focus on being a decent father, not working 100 hours a week. So I applied for a job at a company called L3 Communications, one of the bigger defense contractors there is. And that's who made that satellite I was kind of bragging about there. And the job was to basically start a machine shop for them, lead this machine shop initiative over all of their divisions. And it was really like the dream freaking job for a machinist, manufacturing dork like me. And I'll kind of tighten up the story, but essentially you go online, you fill out a bunch of blanks, and then you attach a resume. And that's the only way you could apply for a job. And I remember like the whole time being like, man, I am way less impressive by just reading my resume than talking to me or looking at, touching and holding and feeling stuff that I've been involved with. And sure enough, I didn't get a call back. I did my due diligence. I pestered the HR people, never got a call back. And I was like, it's a dead end. And then it hit me like, they just need to know how awesome I am. So I put together a portfolio of work I did that was very kind of aerospace focused. And I tried to tie it to how I helped customers, how I made their processes better, all that kind of stuff. And I printed it up on really nice paper. I put it on a spiral bound little thing with my resume and cover letter. And I just went into the front office of the division I was applying for. Totally got shut down by the receptionist. She's like, nope, apply online. That's how it works. And I was like, okay, I did that, but maybe, and I just left it on her desk. I was like, you can throw it away if you want, but I printed it. Maybe you could just drop it in the HR manager's, inbox. Let him throw it away if he wants. I got a call back 45 minutes later, and I had an interview like right then. They wanted me the next day. I was out of town, whatever. So I ended up, the next Monday. And long story short, they interviewed 30 people. They had well over 100 people apply for the job. And at the end, the VP of engineering said to me, for being in the business of making things, I'm surprised you were the only person that actually showed up with examples of what you've made and were ready to talk about it. So I got the job, best job I've ever had in my life. I probably even like it more than I love Autodesk, but I'm a person that's made to make things, and Autodesk, I just talk about making things and draw cartoons on the screen and stuff. So that's kind of my portfolio experience. And then I'll kind of end it with your portfolio of work, I think, is the important part, right? Not even a portfolio, but while I was at L3, that's how I got my job at Autodesk. I interacted with a couple people at Autodesk, and really it made me realize, like, every interaction you have with somebody is an opportunity to leave an impression. And that's what our portfolio of work does, right? So I got my job at Autodesk because I worked at L3. I worked with Autodesk as I was a customer, and I made an impression of everything I worked on. They saw what I was working on, needed support with. And when the person that talked me into leaving, selling my soul to the software industry, he was getting a promotion. And when his boss told him, you can't take that position until you backfill yourself, he called one person, and that was me. And it was really because of the body of work he had seen me do. So with that, I think you'll probably get more out of what Jake is going to share, but think about maybe some of my story can apply to what you're doing. But I think the important part is being able to tie it back to how you're going to help the company that you're applying for. And with that, I probably went over time, but Jake will sort that out.
Thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a big reason that why we're sharing who we are and our personal experiences with portfolios. And I have a very similar experience to Tim. So, let me start at the beginning here. So my name is Jake Ramirez. I'm a student ambassador with Autodesk currently. And just like Elliot on the call here too, we're basically kind of like the middleman between the students, between Autodesk, and we're total nerds about CAD and love CAD and want to make sure you have a good experience with that. Before I landed here at Autodesk, my background was in automotive motorsport. I got to race with a bunch of those fancy looking cars we see on the right there. And that's where I really kind of, got addicted, to everything mechanical design. This was just as I was in high school and going into college. And, like a lot of people here, I don't really know exactly what I wanted to study, kind of bounced around a little bit. And I ended up getting my degree in industrial design. So very similar to a lot of people on here, probably mechanical engineers. But we're all in the same boat here of, hey, when I'm applying for colleges, when I'm looking for internships, when I'm trying to get a job, I have to be able to show people what I've done, even at the ground level. With a job being a technician on some of these race cars, I couldn't just show up. I was just some 16-year-old kid who kind of knew how to turn around, but not really. And I went to the shop and was just like, hey, I want to work here. And same thing as Tim. They're just like, get out of here. We're not looking to hire people right now. And just that consistency of showing up every day and saying, hey, even if you're not looking for technicians right now, can somebody sweep the floor? Can I just learn under somebody? And I eventually got into that industry, and it was by far one of the coolest things. Of course, in that industry, I learned all sorts of other things, machining being one that we talked about, and, got through college. I've been using CAD for about 7 years now. That would be throughout high school, learned a number of different CAD systems, and of course, focusing on Fusion 360 now. So to the meat and potatoes, right, is how has my portfolio of work helped me? And the short answer is, without my portfolio, there's no way that I would be on the Zoom call talking to all of you right now. My portfolio is the only reason Autodesk even really considered to hire me, because I could show them that, hey, I know Fusion 360, I have the skills that you're looking for, on and off paper. Another thing that Tim kind of pointed on, right, is like on a resume, on paper, some of us just don't look that impressive as compared to other people, and I'm in that boat. Even after college and go into the workforce as an industrial designer, look, I mean, on paper I've got a 2-year degree and experience, but a lot of these jobs are looking for people that have 4-year plus degrees with at least 5 years of experience and all these crazy things. And you might look at that and say, oh man, like these people aren't even going to consider me. Why would I even apply? But I took those risks, and it got me into a lot of interviews that I am 100% confident that if I didn't have a portfolio, there's no way they're even going to talk to me. Portfolios come in a lot of different formats too, which we're going to talk about. Like Tim said, if you have something physical that you could go into a place and drop it off on the front desk and say, hey, please just don't throw this away. Show it to the hiring manager, let them do it if they want to, but at least they're going to see that, hey, this person has the skills that we're looking for, and they can prove it. And not only that, but they can talk about it. In one of the recent interviews I did with an industrial design firm, they literally, we all sat down with their designers. They pulled up my portfolio on a projector, and we literally went through every single project that I had, and they just wanted me to talk about it and mainly talk about the process. Tim talked about, hey, even if this project that you have isn't crazy impressive, and we'll go a little bit deeper on that. I compared a lot of my high school and college projects to projects that senior engineers and designers were doing, and it's the same experience of, oh man, like my projects aren't that good, but I can tell an experience from that. I can tell, well, I got into this project and I realized that I needed, to learn a lot if I was going to get to where I wanted to be. And I had these hurdles and I had these struggles, and this is how I overcame them. And that's really what they're going to be looking for. You can show them finished products all day long. If they don't know how you got there, how you solved those problems along the way, those are the skills that they're really going to look for. So again, to kind of conclude that, I mean, I've done a lot of cool stuff, whether it be, very hands-on technical stuff like being a technician, or some more of the kind of computer side, like doing design work, a little more art focused. I had to always be able to show people what I could do. On the technical side, maybe it wasn't an actual portfolio of work, but like Tim, I drove my truck down to the shop, and that's usually a pretty good kind of scale of, okay, is this guy a good technician? Let's go see how good his truck looks. So a lot of those things, portfolios and even deeper than that, just being able to show somebody what I've done and start a conversation about it has opened up so many more doors for me than I could have ever imagined. Again, there's no reason that a professional level motorsport shop should have hired some 16-year-old kid that didn't really know what he was doing when it came to being a mechanic. And when it comes to Autodesk, I mean, again, there's how many college students? I was just a first-year college student. My portfolio was an actual physical booklet, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And it was all just about, hey, this is who I am. This is what I've done up until now. This is some of the experience that you'll see on my resume, but let me actually show you some pictures from that. And let's talk about those. So with that, I want to go ahead and transition. And let's talk about more of the details of a portfolio, and specifically what it is and why do you need one. So we hinted on this a little bit, but it's a place where you can showcase your abilities. And I say that kind of in a general or broad sense, because one, it's going to come in a lot of different forms. And two, everybody's portfolio is going to look a lot different and serve a different purpose. So we talked about a physical document, meaning that I'm on my third portfolio, kind of big revision now. The first one that I did when I was in college was an actual booklet. I went through and designed every single page, went down to the print shop, had them print it and bind it and, make me a bunch of copies. And that was something that, was I could take down to a place and leave it with the hiring manager, and they can say, okay, I can see what Jake can do. And at that point, that was great. That was a great way to get started in making a portfolio. I also mentioned a PDF on here. It's a bit of a less common one, but something that can really come in handy, especially if you're like emailing back and forth with a hiring manager and you just want them to kind of see a really short kind of blurb of, hey, this is what I can do. Here's my best 2 or 3 projects. We'll typically kind of refer to this as like a send out package. So when I'm talking to a hiring manager and I just need to show them, hey, this is why you should consider me for the next round of interviews. And maybe in the next round of interviews, we can actually pull my website up and look through some of the projects on there. And again, use those as jumping off points for a conversation. That's our final form is going to be the website. And that's the one that we're going to focus on today. Of course, portfolios are going to open up doors, especially in our job applications. And they're becoming a minimum requirement, really. I think modern day, it is so easy for you to launch a portfolio. It takes such a little amount of time that I think every good engineer, designer, photographer, whoever you are, there's almost no excuse to not having a portfolio. On the bottom left here, we're seeing a little screenshot from my personal portfolio. And on the bottom right was just like the first 2 jobs I looked up on LinkedIn, both of them. We're seeing minimum qualifications. If you don't have a portfolio, you will not be considered for this job that I was looking at here. So I really, really think, going back again to my personal experience, to Tim's personal experience, without a portfolio, we just wouldn't have got the opportunities that we've been able to get. So we know what it is. We know maybe why we should make one. So what goes in it? It's all about who you are and what your use case is going to be for it. So I use an engineer and an industrial designer as an example here. So an engineer might show more kind of technical solutions to a problem. An industrial designer might show more of their design thinking and design process. Of course, we can extend that to say, if you're a photographer, then you're going to show your photography on there. If you do like branding and packaging design, what you're going to show on there, how many brands you've made and done, done all the stuff for. So it's all about what you're going to use it for. And they can look so different that, portfolios open up a really big world of creative thinking. You can make your website look exactly how you want it to. But how do you actually make one? So it's really, really easy. When I talk to a lot of students and, I say like, hey, you should make a portfolio. You've got great work and you really to put this together. Another big thing that seems to happen to every student along the way is you end up losing your old projects, especially if you don't document them well enough. I've got some projects that I can think back to in high school that I wish I had some more pictures of. So starting a portfolio, starting to have this kind of document of your work is definitely the earlier the better. And it's a living document. I'm always making updates to my portfolio. Whenever I do a new project and I think it might be either A, just worth adding to my website, or B, maybe it's even good enough to take one of the projects off of my website and replace it with, I'm always making sure that I'm documenting that entire process. So how do we actually build one? What are general kind of steps in the outline? So we choose a website builder. Now there's a number of those that you can pick from. They all do the same job. We'll learn how to use it. Pretty simple. They're all super intuitive. If a lot of you guys are CAD users, using like a simple website builder will be a total walk in the park. Luckily, a lot of them have really great templates for you to start from, and you can even kind of tell them who you are. Like if you tell them, hey, I'm an engineer, they're going to say, okay, well, here's a bunch of templates that other engineers use. If I'm a photographer, here's a bunch of templates that are great for photographers. So they make it extremely easy. You pick a template, the next thing you do is just start to fill it with your content. Of course, this is a really good step or a really good point, just to kind of to pull away from that and say, when I was making my first portfolio and even when I was starting to make my first website, I made a huge mistake. That was a big learning point for me, and that mistake was that I compared all of my work. The first thing I did, especially when I was going to make a website, is I just searched like industrial designer portfolio. And all the top links that come up are people who have been in industry for like 25 years, have just these amazingly impressive. And, me as just some, early college kid at the time, I look at that and I'm just like, oh my God, like my work isn't anything near that. I feel so pressured that my work has to be at that level. But that wasn't the case. And as soon as I kind of got over that, my portfolio really came together. So no matter where you're at in, your professional, your educational careers, no matter what you're studying, no matter how many projects you have, portfolios are definitely quality over quantity. So just don't worry about it. Just take what you have and tell your story, and just remember that it's your story. It's not my story compared to Tim's story. It's not my story compared to some professional's story. It's my portfolio, and I'm going to use it for me to show off what I can do.
Yeah, maybe if I could interrupt,
Of course, yeah.
too disruptive. Yeah, I don't think you could kind of overstate that enough, right? I think most people on this call are young in their career. I'm still insecure about the body of work. I've done some very impressive things, but I'm still like, I feel like there's still, I'm still kind of insecure about my body of work when I compare it to people that I look up to. And I think, I've probably hired over 100 people. And I think the important part of it is like, tell your story, your journey, and how it's, and really put that through a lens of how it's relevant to what you're trying to get. I think if you can tie that little story together, how you thought through some problem, how it could relate to some project that they're working on. I think that's the important part. And then the other thing I was going to interrupt a minute ago about was you said there's a lot of, website builders, but maybe even if you're not suggesting any, could you just throw out some names of ones or?
Sure. Yeah. So what we're looking, some of the steps is with Squarespace. I've had a pretty good experience with Squarespace. The cool thing about a lot of these builders is they also have student discounts. If you're a student, you get 50% off of your Squarespace website host. So just really, really quick. When you have a website, have a portfolio, there's typically going to be like a monthly fee to host it. The other cost that you're going to be looking at is purchasing a domain name. Like mine is just jramirezdesign.com. So I had to purchase that. Another one that I really liked working with was Adobe Portfolio. There's a bunch of other ones out there, like Wix. I know a lot of students that have used Wix and had a good experience. I will share in a second too. We do have a little series on our Discord server that actually kind of walks you through step by in like super easy bite-sized pieces, how to actually launch portfolio. We kind of hold your hand through that. And we've had a lot of students follow along and have a really good experience with that. Do you have anything else to add, Tim?
I'm a total idiot when it comes to IT type of stuff. I work at a software company, so it's a little embarrassing to say, but I did like a big fundraiser motorcycle ride, I don't know, a year ago. And I wanted to build a website for it. And I, had a couple beers, sat down, bought a website, Google this, Google that. I had a website. So if you're intimidated by it, just show don't tell, right? Just start start action, and I think everything will fall into place. So
Definitely. Especially, back when I was making my first portfolio, before I even got onto a website, it was like, it was this huge undertaking in my head. I thought like, this is going to take me so much time. I'm going to spend months just getting all this content together. And today it is so easy. A lot of people, even when we're talking about people about learning CAD and like learning Fusion 360, a lot of people look at it maybe like an analogy would be like learning a language, and think, oh my gosh, like it's going to be so much time. I'm going to have to put, hundreds of hours in just to be halfway decent at this. But like Tim said, these website builders are so intuitive. And I mean, really, I've seen students just take, a couple afternoons weekend, and they've got a portfolio launched, and they can send me the link to their website, and they can send that link out to, their friends and their family and their professors and say, hey, could you give me some feedback on this? Do you think it's good? What could I improve? That's another great step that I probably actually should have added here, after we publish, is get feedback.
Yeah.
Send it out to your friends, send it out to your family, say, hey, what do you think about this? What can I improve? Is it readable? Do you understand the story that I'm telling here? Yeah, it's so much easier than it might seem to be.
That's two important things. So you reach out to people that I mean, I find that I'm a better champion. Probably a better champion for Abraham and Elliot and Jake than they are of themselves, right? Share the kind of story you're trying to tell, and then be vulnerable enough to share it with people that will help you tell even maybe a better story than you're selling yourself. So yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out.
That's right. Yeah. That was actually, that's another great point. Um, with projects, with anything you do, with anything you design, with anything that you put a lot of hours in, you can tend to kind of get like, quote unquote, married to it in a way where you think that, I love this isn't going to change. This is perfect. And then, when it comes time, when I finish my first website or my first like physical portfolio, and it happens to all of us. I took it to my professor, and for lack of a better term, he said, hey, this is crap. This is bad. I know you can do better. And he pushed me to my final product compared to that first version that I had was completely night and day. So don't be afraid of that when you're building your portfolio. You're going to send it to people, and anybody that gives you any feedback that you might feel is negative at the time, they're just looking out for you. They know what you're capable of, they know your skill set, and they know that they're going to help you out with their feedback. So that's just another good point. Try not to get super married to some of this stuff, because where you start versus where you finish, and these portfolios are always evolving. It's going to be night and day.
I don't want to race through this, but I do want to make sure. I think we had some really good questions ahead of time, and I'll just kind of keep track of that.
Sure thing. So we're going to
push this forward. Just wanted to make sure we remember that.
Yeah. So we're going to get into some of those questions, and of course have some time for you guys to unmute and just kind of talk to us for a little bit. Before we get to that, I hinted about kind of a Discord little portfolio walkthrough that we have. So if you scan this QR code on the right, it'll give you all of our links for the Fusion 360 student ambassadors, like our Instagram and our YouTube and stuff. But the Discord link is what's going to be great on there. So let me go ahead and jump out of this presentation, and let's go over to Discord. So if you've never used it, Discord is just kind of like a messaging platform. A lot of students use it, for like playing video games or making study groups and stuff. But we have a server called AutoDesk Fusion 360 Students, and it's basically just a big community full of people who are really talented with Fusion 360. And we also give you a ton of other like benefits and resources, and there's cool like design competitions that you can join from here. And this is where you're going to get all that info. I'll also make sure to post this link in the chat for you guys when we go into the Q&A. So if you do decide to join and you want to learn a little bit more about how to make a portfolio, this is where it's going to bring you. this little message down here, you're going to grab a role. A role is just kind of telling us who you and why you're here. So all of you guys will just grab this student role and you just click this little icon down here. After that, you'll be able to see all of our channels and stuff that we have for students. And on the left, we're going to see one called Portfolio here. So if I scroll up, this was a series that we decided to divide up over 17 days. And it was like super easy, bite size. Every other day you had like maybe 20, 30 worth of work to do. But all of this, if you're focused, could 100% be condensed into a couple afternoons on a weekend. Going through this, just taking a scroll through, is going to totally walk you through every step that you need to know when you are creating your portfolio. The cool thing about this is actually when I posted all this at the beginning of the year, I was transitioning my portfolio from Adobe Portfolio to Squarespace. So I went through and I documented every single step that I did, and I shared them with everybody here. So that's where you can find some more. You can also reach out to a bunch of Autodesk ambassadors on here. We see myself and Elliot, and we can help you guys out. Let's go ahead and transition back here. And we do want to open up for that Q&A so we can answer some of your questions if you guys want to write them in the chat. And then we also have some that I believe you guys filled out when you registered. So Tim or Elliot, if you guys want to jump on some of those.
Yeah, I'll start off. So one of the questions was, they're all good questions. I was going to say one of the questions was good. So are there any projects that aren't worth using, smaller class projects that maybe don't seem, impactful, or is everything useful? So my two kind of cents on that, the first one would be, focus on your highlights. I've made, literally thousands of projects, over my 20 plus years in manufacturing. So for me, I have this big breadth of work. And if I'm going to, apply for a motorsports, company, I can pull out what I feel is relevant to them. If I'm going to work for an aerospace company, I can pull out what's relevant for them. Now that might not be aerospace parts for the aerospace company, right? But it might, for me, from a manufacturing perspective, from an engineering perspective, you might be able to highlight some engineering tasks that you think are relevant. I know, so Abraham's on this call. He was an ambassador of ours. I know he's done some really interesting projects through school. Generative design, right? If he's going to apply for a company, he could highlight that as, it might not seem like the most significant thing he's ever worked on, right? But it's, kind of forward-looking technology. He can even highlight some of the, I won't say failures, right? But I saw someone, map out kind of this generative, experience, right? And they kind of highlighted, just playing with playing with generative design, learning it, kind of failing at it. And then they did it in 3 phases. The second phase was like, okay, now I get it. And they kind of highlighted that. And then here's the final product. So I thought that was a really interesting story. And this was somebody that was applying for a job and highlighting their generative experience. I also would say do impactful things, right? As students, you guys have a lot of opportunities to do design competitions, to join clubs, do more impactful things if you're insecure about what you already have on your resume. And then I think I already talked on it, but I think that the important thing for me as somebody who's hired a lot of people, be ready to talk about it. Be ready to tie it back to the company that you're applying for. So I'll leave that kind of answer, that topic. Those are my answers for that question. If you had anything to add, Elliot or Jake, feel free to add that, but we can move on to other questions.
Yeah, I can piggyback that. Of course, like we talked about earlier, everybody's at a different stage in their educational and professional careers. So, whatever you've got, if you have one project that you don't think is that good, put it on there. You have to start somewhere. That's the golden rule, right? You see this goal, the first thing you have to do is just take the first step. that's the easiest thing to do, is just take your first step.
Yeah, Ashley, politely,
Yeah.
politely raise
So
your hands.
I didn't want to jump in and be like, one of my questions is, so I worked in the solar industry for a really long time, and I was not an installer, so I didn't actually build anything, but I was creating all of the design plans, which is my relationship with Autodesk. So I did all of the building plans and the electrical, like single line and 3-line diagrams. Would those, even though I'm not building something, be worth putting on a portfolio as well?
I mean, I would say, so my two instincts are, how are they not? That's my first one. How are they not relevant, right? But then I would turn it back on you. And this is where it's great to like go, put something together, put anything together, go, talk to some friends, right? And that's where, if, now let's pretend you and I were those friends talking about it. I would ask, like, what did, tell me how that's relevant to this position you're applying for, right? Did you learn how the systems work? Did you have to communicate really well with the installers? That all that stuff is more than just engineering, right? So engineers are, I don't want to throw any stones, but a lot of engineers are known for not being the most like good people with like articulating things to people, right? Highlight that, for you. And that sounds like there's a really good opportunity to express how well you communicated with people in the field installing or whatever, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's kick it over to my friend Abraham. Good to see you, by the way.
Thank you, Tim. Me too. So my question is, as you mentioned, I did some, let's say, put it this way, design stuff in school, right? Like research and stuff like that.
Mhm.
I also did some technician stuff. Now, I mean, Jake already answered that question I was gonna ask. Is it worth putting some pictures or putting some space of regarding the technician stuff? But I also did some tutoring. Is tutoring something worth putting there? Like I have some pictures of screenshots of the problems that we worked on during the session. Is that worth putting there?
Yeah, so there's kind of two questions there, right? I think as engineers, I think the more real mechanical experience you have. I worked a VP of engineering at L3, so I'm going to answer two questions there. He used to be magical in teasing out of people what they did in their private time. And really what he was looking for, because I remember, like, how much can you really ask about that stuff? And he was like, the dude that builds race cars on his free time, that or the person that engineers water things for what I can't think of any good example, but he said people that are passionate enough to do things in their spare time that's relevant to what we do, that adds, we all need to shine somehow, right? So yeah, I think if you're a technician before, I think that gives you a very good, mechanical experience, that we're all just a product of our past, right? So you have those observations that you can reflect back on when you're designing something. It's a huge strength for me. I can tell you that. So the next question was about tutoring, right? So obviously you can highlight the projects you did in school. You'll pick up a theme. I think the most important thing than a screenshot is the story behind it, and the story of, man, I was exposed to so many cool problems when I was tutoring, right? And have a couple examples that can back it up. And then more than that, have a couple examples of, do your homework before you're interviewing with people, right? I was like a stalker before I went and interviewed at L3. I learned and you guys are so lucky to have the internet these days, right?
Right.
Do some homework and tie it back to them and what you've, don't be the pretend expert, but try to tie it back to your tutoring, I talked about my experience and observations with engineers, and I'm mostly trying to be joking and light about it, but I do know that engineering managers are looking for engineers that can communicate.
Okay.
And tutoring hopefully helps you
Right.
work through technical communications, right?
Yeah.
So I would
Right.
definitely highlight that too.
Yeah, having tutoring experience shows that you have, in some capacity, the ability to communicate ideas and to listen to other people. And then especially if you can show, cases where you help people solve problems, that's engineering right there. It's solving problems. So it shows you can work in teams. It shows that you have the ability to communicate. It shows you have the ability to listen. Yeah, having tutoring experience is an incredibly powerful thing on your portfolios or your resume if you highlight the correct things to the correct people.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
and it shows, I think there's a different kind of person that invests time into other people, right?
Yeah.
And that's usually the kind of person that's going to be a little bit more of a team focused person.
Mhm.
Someone that wants to be able to communicate things with people. I think there's so much goodness that you could, if you had a
Squeeze
little
out of that
effort,
tutoring
yeah, if
job.
you had a little effort. That's the thing. I think with younger people in their career, we only have so much experience, right? I can sell the heck out of my time at the bike shop. I worked retail. I got to deal with customers. I got to work on technical mechanical thing. I just highlight what you are and who you are. So, Ashley, fire.
Woo. Okay. So for people who are starting to work on their portfolio, but are still, I guess, working on more of their general coursework and figuring out what they like, is it better to list their projects chronologically or reverse chronologically or by subject? So like biomedical, solar, whatever other topics that people have.
I have an opinion, but I'll put Jake on the spot and get his opinion first.
Yeah. Okay. So while you're in school, and while I was in school, I would typically do things chronologically. So the deeper you go, the older my project get, and you really see progression that way too. You can 100% see, okay, this is where they started. This next project, I see, okay, maybe they learned how to sketch a little bit better, or maybe they learned CAD a little bit more, and you keep going. So that's one way to do it. Again, everybody might have a different way to kind of attack this. And in my portfolio now, there's no order to it. It's just kind of what I think looks best on there. Another really important short point on that is with these website builders, you have all of the power to turn content on and off. So like Abraham was just saying, so if he wants to go after another job that his tutoring experience is super relevant for, maybe he can get rid of one project or turn a couple tutoring projects, like, different pages that they can go view. You can toggle all that on and off. And I do that all the time. If I'm submitting a job that is more engineering focused, I have a handful of projects that I want them to see. If I'm submitting for a job that's more industrial design or architecture, I can, my portfolio can change completely how it looks 5 times in a day, just based on what I want them to see at that specific time.
So I'm not, so the opinion I was going to say was, you think about it as a story, what tells the best story. We're all hopefully just storytellers, right? All we're trying to do is tell a story of who we are, why our experience is relevant to get the job that you want. I am not the guy to talk to about building out your website, but the little experience I had last year making one, I think it would be pretty easy to do / Autodesk if you're buying at Autodesk, and like I made a special portfolio for Autodesk. Here's the link. Just copy it, make a new one, and shuffle it around to tell the story you want to make. I've had a lot of success with that with my personal resume and like doing a cover letter and kind of putting forth a portfolio of work that I wanted to show off. So my opinion about applying for jobs, if you're going to take the time to apply for one, apply like you plan on winning. I'm a very competitive, sportsy kind of racer guy. And like, if I'm going to take the time to show up for a race, I'm going to win the damn thing. Or at least I'm going to put the effort forward and know when I lost that it wasn't because it was a lack of effort. So I'd rather, me personally, and I've mentored plenty of younger people, I'd rather apply for 5 places and pour my soul into all 5 than apply for 500, right? So if that means shuffle it around and tune it to where it's special for them, then that's what you do. But I would kind of put the one you're most proud of up front and then kind of go backwards from there. Does that make sense? Okay. Amy, did you have any questions? I like to pick on people. I'm sorry if
no worries. I had a lab, so I joined in really late.
yeah,
So I'll go ahead and watch
yeah,
the
no problem.
recording later, but
Thanks for
I
letting
think
me. Yeah.
oh, no worries, no worries. It's actually my name is actually Ami, but it's spelled like Amy. So
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks for
yeah.
that. Cool.
No worries. But I think for me, my biggest thing right now is I'm building my portfolio. So I recently transitioned from business to programming, I want to say a year and a half ago. And so I think I took that year and I learned the basics, and now I'm doing my best to apply everything. So I think I've done a lot of research, and I've done research in AutoDesk, and I've looked up your company, and it's very, very intriguing.
Fun company.
But yeah, right now, I think you guys kind of answered my questions about how to approach it and what to do. And I don't have many projects right now, but I am working on one right now that I think I'm really excited for and going to be very proud of. And
Good.
I'm going to act like I'm winning in that
There you
sense.
go. There you go. I love it. Yeah, good.
But I think for me, the only thing, because I know for computer science, especially, getting an internship is very, very challenging, even if it's a smaller company or a private company. So I think preparation in terms of like what to prepare for and which algorithms to practice, and how much time you need to devote that with school too. I think I'm still trying to figure it out, but if you guys have any tips on that, that'd be great.
Good. So I don't want to try to sell Autodesk too much, but we have great internship programs. So definitely look into ours. The thing I'm glad I picked on you, because the thing that just popped in my head was for people that don't feel like, maybe you're not even applying for positions now or internships now, but maybe it's worth starting a portfolio. And then I think what you might realize is like you have some holes that you want to fill. So then you'll go look for things to learn, projects to become, teams to join, to kind of fill in where you want to highlight, when you're
yeah. And that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. And I don't know what I want to specialize in yet. So I'm kind of just playing around with it. So right now in my software engineering class, the team, I got assigned lead for that one, and our team is building a stock price estimation system, and I'm really excited for that. And I was doing some research on it, and it's probably one of the more, it's a starting project for programmers. It's a very common starting project, so I'm really excited. So I think, yeah, you're right, and I think I just slowly in little increments building here and there, but as long as I keep pushing and adding to my portfolio, hopefully I'll be okay.
The other thing that just popped in mind there was I heard you were assigned the lead or volunteered for the lead or whatever. You ended up being the lead of it, right? And I think that's something that's worth kind of highlighting. First of all, just remember that that's something to take serious and be a leader, and taking it as the opportunity to think about it like you want to brag about it later, right?
Yeah.
And as hiring managers, very often, they're looking, what did you do that's not just vanilla, what everybody else has done. Yeah. What do you got?
Well, thank you for that.
Yeah. Thank you for
something too.
Thank you for playing. Yeah. What do you got, Abraham?
One quick question. So what's a good amount of let's say slides per project, or like space per project?
Many as it takes to convey the project.
Yeah, I mean, you can have one project that just takes,
That's a good point. I don't want you to I don't want to let you pass that yet. So we did one of these, and we were lucky to be joined by Tom Matano, who is a lifelong automotive designer. He designed the Mazda Miata and RX-7. And he, left students with his kind of golden nugget. And that was, look, if you have one good project that shows that you can do the work, then that one project is all you need. So think about that, is if you have one project that you can really outline, okay, here was the team aspect, here was my to that project, here's where we came together, here's where we failed, and here's where we succeeded. If you can paint that picture, that might be all you need. Of course, think of who's going to be looking at it too. As is the case, a lot of hiring managers, you're lucky if they actually spend looking at your resume. You're going to be extra lucky if they actually click on your portfolio, and how much time are they realistically going to spend on there. So focus on good storytelling.
Yeah, the storytelling is important. Read books about, communicating with people, winning friends, influencing people. There's lots of really good books, but it often comes down to being a decent storyteller. I'm not going to pretend to be a great storyteller, but I'm always trying to be better. And everybody has a different patience for different kinds of stories, right? So I think about like an email. I try at Autodesk, I try to have everybody know in the subject what the email is about and a couple lines to know if they want to keep reading. Maybe I'll even highlight those couple lines and then say more detail or something like that, right? So, catch somebody's attention, tell a quick, concise story, and then you can go into more detail if they care more. So, Lewis.
Just like real quick, remember your audience. Your hiring director might not be an engineer, so putting a bunch of slides on all the little engineering particulars, they're not going to care. They're not going to understand it. But if he's a gearhead like Tim, then absolutely throw that stuff in. So that's the only thing I can add to all that.
Know your audience is something I learned the hard way after a really very, very technical presentation I gave to a bunch of executives.
You had no idea what 90% of it was about.
Yeah, my boss pulled me aside and put his arm around me. I was like, that was the best technical presentation I've ever seen. But I don't think anybody in that room wanted to hear it. Like I said, know your audience. So, Lewis?
Hey guys, apologize. I came in a little late. I was caught up at work, but my question is, I work for an antenna company, and part of my job is to design antennas, and they want me to take a leadership position in 2 or 3 years when the other one retires. So how would you navigate obviously we have like a lot of proprietary designs, and maybe I can kind of like show like a top level. I probably don't want to go into like the specific details of the designs and say, hey, this is what we're doing at this place and you guys can copy it if you want.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer that. I just looked at the time and I think this is the end. I'm happy to stay around longer. So I just want to acknowledge anybody that has to drop. I'm staying around until everybody feels like their questions are answered. If you have to drop, I understand. We'll show the recording tomorrow morning. So thanks for anybody that has to drop. Appreciate your attendance and interactions. So I've worked on, Black Ops satellite stuff and some ITAR controlled stuff. And I've honestly kind of shed a little tear about how awesome some of the stuff I've made is and how I can't share it with anybody.
Yeah.
So with that said, for one, it's an opportunity to highlight your respect for IP, right? So if I went over to Lockheed Martin and was showing and bragging about stuff I made at L3 that's, super secret, I probably wouldn't go over too good. So I think it's an opportunity to be able to tell a story about, I worked on some secret projects. For you, I just, I don't want to disclose, IP, but you would highlight, you could show a generic image of some antenna thing, right? And say, this is not what I worked on, but I wanted to kind of give a visual. And then for you, it's more about the story than highlighting some visually appealing thing, right? So then you would break down like, I have these
The
RF
skills
issues.
you got, stuff like that.
Yeah, I had these RF issues and we worked through it, we pulled the team together and we worked through it, kind of tell that story. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, because it's a little tricky because they want their like directors to also kind of design or be able to design as well. So yeah, I guess I would have to kind of try and figure out, do they want their director to design like 10% of the time, 50% of the times, 80% of the time, and then kind of tailor it around that.
Yeah, you could highlight, that you use configurations to drive these designs to run out of, tables, and you parameterize the parametric modeling. You could definitely highlight geeky CAD stuff without, showing off the visually appealing part of it, right?
Yeah, okay.
I've been around a few like space antennas, and they're not the sexiest things there are. So I don't think you need
Yeah.
the focus. I can make them look cool, but I think the visual part of it, you could put some like, generic image and, talk over it, right?
Okay.
I think, Jake, I think we similar opinion, or you have any?
Yeah, I was gonna say, I haven't done this, and this is up for debate here. But you can password protect pages on your website. So if it's something like you needed them to sign an NDA, and then you can talk about some of the really specifics of what you're working on, that's always an option too. I've had to do that in interviews where the people are telling me the specifics about the company. I'm not employed yet. Sign the NDA, all of that is fine, so that is another option. But again, I haven't done that personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I think, like I said, definitely take consideration that, you are a protector of people's IP, right?
Yeah. And unless you're specifically trying to show the models, the stuff that you're trying to market for yourself in your portfolio, that's not protected. So you just talk about that sort of stuff.
Yeah. So I have some other questions here. I don't see any other hands. So what should we avoid putting in our portfolio? I would say things, just be truthful. And if don't make anything up. There's no reason to go surf the internet and fake that you designed some cool thing, because Jake's going to come in right after you and show that he actually designed it or whatever. So, and then things that you can't back up with a decent story, right? So I think if you haven't picked up the trend, I think the story is the most important part, right? There was like a Harley thing that Abraham worked on that, like, I could care less about Harley. So the part isn't that interesting, but the story behind how he learned generative and how he worked with a guy from AutoDesk to learn more about it, and he
Printed it out in a 3D printer, and
where to download Autodesk. So I put a link in the chat. Anybody in education can get all free Autodesk software. So that's pretty awesome. If you need any more about that, we can chime in on that. What are some things in a portfolio that will impress employers? Your ability to talk about it, and then how it relates to their business. I think those two things are important. Did I see something pop up in the chat that we want to talk about, or?
Yeah, that was me. I have a question specifically towards AutoDesk, because how is the technical interviews? Because I know that can be some of the most intimidating interviews that I'm going to face depending on where I apply, and I kind of want to get a gist of how it's going to go.
Yeah, I don't set myself up to fail, but the first thing I was going to say is, like, don't be scared. Like, do you know who Michael Jordan is? He's okay. I realize he's been retired for a while, but Michael Jordan said, like, I had a boss that had a poster of his on his board, and it was like, I've missed 2,336 shots. He had these lists of everything that he kind of failed at, right? So I don't make a habit of failing, but I'm also not scared to fail. So don't get wrapped up with, like, I got to be prepared. I don't want to turn this into a boys versus girls thing either, but I did. No, hear me out. My daughter's this, like, genius little 14-year-old girl that I'm very focused on like how to lift her up into being the awesome thing she can be. And I was talking to a professor at Cal Poly, and we were talking about why aren't more women in manufacturing or engineering? And she read an article that talked about how women and girls typically won't apply for a position until they feel like they've checked all the boxes. So I'm confident in all these things.
Yep.
Do you want to, we're just here having fun. Do you want to take a guess at what the percentage is for men or boys?
Wasn't it like, it was, I don't,
Oh, you've heard it before. Okay.
I've heard about this study. I think it was like men will apply even if they're 60% ready for the
That's
job.
exactly the number.
Oh, yeah.
60%.
We don't care. We'll just go for it.
That's like a home
Yeah,
run.
you guys are just, and I've seen a couple of my guy friends who are engineers, and they're just like, yeah, just go for it, just try. And I'm like,
Just
how are you not prepared for
Yeah.
that? And like they'll come back and some of them will get it and some of them won't. But I think it's just like throwing yourself in the deep end. And
You know what?
Sink or swim.
You will be fine. So I at my core, I'm an insecure person. I think many people are. I try to compensate for that by pretending to be secure or whatever. But baseball is an interesting thing, right? Like you got a really good batting average if you're into the 300s, right? It means you only hit the ball, you got on base 3 times out of 10. So the reason I bring up that kind of tangent is because I think you have to challenge yourself to just go get as well prepared as you can and go apply for some stuff. You'll learn from the experience of this technical interview that maybe you weren't that prepared for, and then you'll learn. You're kind of heading in a field that I'm not super familiar with, to be honest, and that's kind of why I went down the tangent. But I have applied for programming positions to machine, $3 million machines that can eat themselves alive and kill people. And I say that as a sensational statement, but man, I probably wasn't that qualified for it. But I just went in and figured it out and I never lie, right? But I think people also judge you by like how you answer things you don't know. And in like a manufacturing position, right, nobody knows everything. And I've been asked questions where I was like, man, this is what I would do because I don't know that, but this is the path I would go to learn it and to deal with it. And I've gotten almost every position I've applied for, but I put 100% of my focus on the ones that I really care about. So just go. Especially now while you're still in school, go apply for some stuff and learn. You have some professors, right? So go up. Yeah, you have some professors that can guide you better than Tim, the dumb machinist guy.
Yeah, I've definitely been like, I need to push myself in the deep end.
Sorry,
sink or swim. Exactly. You either sink or you swim. It's that.
And then don't stress about, be part of the shift about, women only having to check 70% of the boxes instead of 100. And then raise little daughters and teach them the same thing. I'm trying with mine, but it's pretty ingrained in her. So
well, bit by bit, she's gonna grow up strong.
Yeah, we'll see.
Well, I have to I have an hour drive, so thank you guys so much.
I think we're gonna wrap it up. I think we pretty much answered all the other questions. I appreciate everybody staying a little bit long. Hopefully it was worth your time, and hopefully we'll see all you guys leading our industries of engineering and manufacturing and coding and all that stuff. So good to see your faces, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you guys so much for doing this.
Thanks, everyone. That was fun.
Good. Cheers. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.